That's probably not his greatest accomplishment. I think 200 sacks, the Hall of Fame, 4 Super Bowl appearances, 2-time Defensive Player of the Year in the NFL. But Bruce, we will start there. You played 3 seasons with Marcellus Wiley. What's your fondest memory of tutoring Marcellus?
Man, every day was an experience. This young brother was such a joy to be around. After I was this seasoned veteran and trying to pass on some of this knowledge to Marcellus so he could have the opportunity to blossom and become that player he wanted to become in the National Football League. But he was like a sponge. He wanted to learn. He wanted to engage. He wanted to find out the secrets and the nuances of the art of playing the defensive end position and rushing the quarterback. So it was my honor and my pleasure to have that opportunity to spend that time with him.
You know, listening to you with that description, besides talent, work ethic, desire, drive, what separated Marcellus's level of success from yours besides those issues?
Well, he graduated from Columbia. And but look, man, he was just this ball of energy and this personality that went along with all of this energy that he had inside of him. And from the way he talked, the way he carried himself, the way he engaged with other individuals, particularly his teammates. He was always such a joy to be around and come to work that next day. And if you spent any time in our locker room, it was a comedy show every single day between the likes of Thurman Thomas and Jim Kelly and Darryl Talley. And then you add Marcellus to the big mix and Ted Washington and so many others. It was such a joy to go to work in the morning because you knew that it wasn't like going to work. You were going to be with your brothers and continuing to grow that bond that would only transfer and become stronger as you entered out into that field to go to war. So, man, it was just a fun and exciting time, even at that stage when Marcellus came, and they actually drafted him to take my job. Most people didn't know that. But, me being and understanding that everything has a shelf life, and one day it would have been my time to give it up and pass that torch on. But instead of looking at, I call him my son, as a threat, I said it's time for me to pass this knowledge on so this man can have a productive life and make all the money he possibly can and make a name for himself. So that's what this was all about.
Man, love it, man. Long story short, there's only one Bruce Smith, so he didn't have any concerns about passing on the knowledge. There was only going to be one, number 78, man. And you know how much I think of you on and off the field. I call you my football pops, man. You taught me so much. But being around you for those years and knowing how great you are, the best defensive lineman to ever live, you feel a bit underrated because you were in Buffalo rather than a large market city like New York?
Well, obviously, if I would have played in a bigger market, perhaps it might have been a different outcome and perception. But I think for the most part, people knew us for our dynamic offense. We were, particularly in the early 90s and the late 80s, we were the most prolific offensive unit at that time for about 4, 5, 6 years. We put points on the board like no other team in that period of time with that K-gun and no-huddle offense with Jim Kelly at the helm and Thurman Thomas and Andre Reed and James Lofton and Steve Tasker, just to name a few of them. And Ted Machabrota, who was the offensive coordinator, when we first got started, and obviously we had a excellent backup quarterback and part coach, Frank Wright. So we had a lot of guys that were not only great athletes, they were student of the games. But just to focus on, had I played in a different city, who knows? The story might not have turned out the way it did. But the one thing that I can say is that the evolution of my game existed because I wanted to become a student of the game. I wanted to be that versatile player that not only was dominant against the run, but was dominant against the pass while playing in that 3-4 defensive scheme, which, you know, Marcellus, it's the 3-4 defensive scheme is pretty much devised for the linebackers to make tackles, not the defensive linemen. We keep the linebackers free. I know Ted used to hate, he'd have to eat up the double team so the inside linebackers could scrape and make the tackles. But once you perfect your craft and you understand the defensive schemes and you understand where that hole is open for that split second, so you can still, in the defensive framework, you can still have your gap responsibility, but you can penetrate and get in the backfield. And you know, that's where I think I stepped my game up and being able to be that student of the game and know when they line up in a certain formation, I knew what play was coming out. And I was able to exploit that and get into the backfield.
All right, we're going to run the K-gun offense. I'm going to shoot these at you quick. How much more would you have been celebrated if you guys had won one of those 4 Super Bowls?
Well, I think obviously it would have certainly made a huge difference. And I think the best chance we had was the first one against the New York Giants, and we lost by 1 point because of a missed field goal. But nevertheless, we still had our opportunities in that particular ball game to win that ball game. I think the coaching staff from the Giants did an excellent job of dropping 9 people and only rushing 2, and it caught us off guard, and we just didn't adjust to it very well.
Okay, there's an argument I have. It feels like on a weekly basis, and you know my answer, but all respect to the late, great Reggie White and Bruce Smith. Who's the greatest defensive end of all time? I'm waiting.
Come on. And this, again, you know, this was in my football life story. I'm not boasting. I'm not bragging. I'm talking about film study. I'm talking about statistics. I'm talking about having to defeat the double team on a consistent basis. Reggie was in a class that most people, he was built differently. Reggie was a power rusher. He had the signature hump move. He was able to be put into a situation where he played on a defensive line with Sean Jones and Clyde Simmons, who both had over 100 sacks in their career. Played for the late, great Buddy Ryan, who was the architect of the Bear defense, which means you send more people than the offense can block. So nobody gets double teamed. And there's even a free blitzer that comes through. So having said that, Reggie Wright, dear friend, love him to death. Reggie and I had this conversation a number of times. He said, Bruce, if you had played in a 4-3 defense, no one would have ever touched you because you wouldn't have gotten double teamed to the extent that you did because you were in a 3-4. So that speaks for itself. A 3-4 versus a 4-3, that 3-4 defensive end is going to get double teamed consistently. A 4-3 defensive end has outside leverage, and he is not going to get double teamed as much.
Man, Preach, brother. You preach. I've been saying that. Look, Buffalo, we both played there. It doesn't always get a good rap. Describe your relationship with the city of Buffalo.
Oh, man, I love Buffalo. I love the people in Buffalo. I love the food. I love chicken. I love the chicken wings. I love chefs. And the weather kind of grows on you as well after a while. And particularly when you're winning, the weather warms up. It feels mighty good. And the fans are just so enthusiastic, passionate, and they